Welcome to Inspiring Women in Audit, the only podcast celebrating the achievements and journeys of women in the internal audit industry. In each episode, we spotlight the extraordinary stories, insights, and expertise of these dynamic professionals. Our aim is to amplify their voices, inspiring a new generation of women auditors to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. Remember to check our show notes for links to our social media channels and to subscribe to the Inspiring Women in Audit newsletter. This podcast is brought to you by I4 Global Results Limited, the audit communication experts dedicated to transforming your audit reporting and your audit results through communication, optimization, and collaboration. Now, let's dive into this episode of Inspiring Women in Audit.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiring Women in Audit, the podcast that is dedicated to empowering and uplifting women within the internal audit industry. By amplifying their voices, we aim to encourage women in the audit profession to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. And I'm your host, Tracy Marquardt. I'm super excited today because we have our special guest, Rumbidzai Musiyiwa. She's joined us all the way from Zimbabwe, and the short form of her name is Rumbi, so we're going to call her Rumbi as we go forward. So Rumbi is the Chief Audit Executive at the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority, where she leads the entire assurance, risk, and governance agenda for the country's energy regulator. With nearly 20 years in internal audit and consulting, she's built audit functions from the ground up, championed board-level foresight papers on emerging risks, and made future-ready thinking a core part of her team's DNA. A chartered accountant, a certified internal auditor, a certified information systems auditor, and a certified risk management assurer, Rumbi pairs deep technical rigor with a passion for technology, holding an ISO 42001 AI lead implementer certification and regularly speaking on data, AI, and sustainability trends in audit. Beyond her day job, Rumbi mentors auditors across Africa, is a past vice president of the IIA Zimbabwe, and has recently been selected to serve on the International Internal Auditing Standards Board, IIASB, with IIA Global beginning in July 2025. Wow, such great qualifications and credentials, Rumbi. Welcome to the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.
Thank you, Tracy, and it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. It's just a great learning opportunity for all of us. So can I ask you about your audit origin story? I'd love to know how you first entered the internal audit profession, and, was it something planned? Did it happen organically?
Wow. So that's quite a story there, because started off with going to PricewaterhouseCoopers. There's a bit of a longish history before that, but let me start off with PricewaterhouseCoopers. So the thinking throughout the application and throughout the interviews was I'm applying to go and do external audits and become a qualified chartered accountant. The interviews were great, managed to make it through the interviews. Day one comes through. Those who are going for external audit practice training are going to the left, but I'm taken to the right, and I'm thinking, okay, what's happening here? So to the right, that's where there was the bin in PricewaterhouseCoopers Governance Risk Management Solutions Department, which later evolved into the Governance Risk and Compliance. I don't know what it evolved to by now. But yeah, so I'm in that department. There's no external audit. There's all the new stuff that I had never heard of. I only knew that PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young deal with external auditors, and everyone wants to be a chartered accountant. So lo and behold, at the right side of the building, there's internal audit, there's IT audit, there's governance reviews, risk management reviews, outsourced internal audit. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is not what I had in mind. So, thank God for people around us, mentors, leaders who see people who take time to notice that someone is in this department, but they're not happy. At that time, I was only 19. And when you're 19, really to voice things, you're fearful, you're worried, Should I say this or should I leave it? So one of the partners at that time said to me, young lady, you're not happy. And I'm like, yes, you're so right. And I had to tell my story, the interview, what I was expecting, and how things had not turned out as I expected. So he called in the managers who had interviewed me, tried to find out what had happened. And he said to them, look, guys, the only thing I need to hear is that this young lady is happy. But to cut the long story short, in the process, there was that settlement. I would spend some months in external audit and some months in the governance risk management solutions department. So that then ushered me into internal audit. So yeah, Tracy, back to your question. Was it an accident? Was it optional? I would say it just happened, but definitely it's one of those just happens that I don't regret.
Yeah. Sounds like a great story. And I'm wondering, so you did both internal audit and external audit for a short period. And so something about internal audit made you go, yep, I got to go back to the right door.
Exactly. And, the more exposure I got to external audit, the more I loved internal audit. So because like for us locally, generally, if you're going to be a chartered accountant, the roles that you then get into when you move into the corporate world are your finance director roles, chief finance officer, the hardcore roles. And the more I did external audit, I was like, you know what? This is not my thing. I don't want to be confined to just the IFRSs, confined to the finance department. I loved how internal audit exposed me to every single department. Yeah. I absolutely loved that. Like talk about HR, we're there. Talk about operations, we are there. Talk about what's happening with quality management systems, we are there. So the more I was exposed to comparing the two, the more I fell in love with internal audit.
I think that's a really informative answer. And I what resonates for me is that, you can really make a difference with internal audit and you can see it, feel it every single day, as well as getting that broad exposure, which is, I think, for me, a difference with external audit. I was external audit for a time too. And internal audit is just, I find so much more rewarding. No disrespect to external auditors out there who are watching the podcast. But I think internal audit is the place to be. So let me ask you then, I know from our previous conversation, you started in science with plans for medicine. Then you shifted to IT. That was your journey before you got to audit. So how has this kind of diverse background influenced your approach to audit?
The influence has been absolutely amazing, Tracy, because first and foremost, it actually taught me to be very open-minded. I quickly became a person who can adapt. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the sciences background, in what we call A-level in our country, I did maths, bio and chemistry. I tell you right now, I work for the energy regulator. We've got mobile laboratories and I can then use that. I remember when I joined the regulator and I was doing my orientation, I asked the mobile lab guys to take me around in their van. I was so excited, putting on the lab coat. And even as they explained to me what was happening, I could understand it. Yeah. You cannot criticize what you don't understand. I could understand it, right from how the color coding was changing, all those chemistry experiments. It was so amazing. So it also made me realize that nothing goes for nothing, that science background is definitely of use now. When I do certain things, for example, the issue with the mobile laboratories, the issues of me just questioning, are your instruments in here calibrated? That's all talk from the sciences world. And with the IT, I remember when I asked my mom to do a course in IT, I was just about, when you're waiting to start the degree and you don't have much to do, I'm like, no, I can't just be sitting around. And I remember saying to her mom, issues of IT, I think they're going to become topical. I didn't quite do computer science or anything, but I think it will be good for me to just, start maybe learning the basics. And I tell you, it's amazing. Because by the time I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers and I was in the department that did both internal audit and IT audits, it was then very easy to understand what was going on with the IT audits. So when I look back and tell people about this, it can look like, oh my goodness, what was that winding story about? But nothing goes for nothing. I tell you, the pieces of the puzzle will always then, fall into place. And it's also up to me as an individual to say, look, I can't say I completely don't know this. What exposure at what level have I had with whatever has come my way? And it will be so easy. You'll pick it up. I think I did something like this in the IT studies. I did something like this in the sciences. So it's been amazing. And the pieces of the puzzle are certainly coming together.
It really does sound like you have some really good pieces of the puzzle to fit, because I don't know if I walked into an energy regulator as an auditor, I would have a lot of, probably a lot more questions, a lot more, foundational questions to ask. So it just sounds like it's a really good match. So I wanted to ask them, like, being in this energy sector and working for the energy regulator and, being chief audit executive, you must need a lot of industry-specific knowledge. So you had a good basis. How did you go about, like, building on that foundational and getting to the expert level of knowledge, and how has that influenced your audit results?
Okay. So you're absolutely right, Tracy. The energy regulator was really a different ballgame altogether, like totally different from anything I had been exposed to. Whilst at PricewaterhouseCoopers, I had done many different industries, from mining, manufacturing, banking, financial services, but nothing like the energy regulator. So definitely it was a different ballgame altogether. So first and foremost for me, I wanted the challenge. I was finding it quite intriguing. I wanted the challenge. And I remember when I started off, my then audit committee chairperson said to me, young lady, what do you need for this to work? And I say to him, I need to know the energy industry like the back of my hand. And he said to me, so how are you going to go about that? And with the energy sector, it's mostly engineers, electrical engineers, engineers in the petroleum sectors. It's mostly engineers, like highly technical people who've got, serious technical expertise in energy issues, which is really nothing compared to, our side of things. So yeah, I had to map out how I was going to go about it. So first and foremost, the most interesting thing that I managed to embark on was going for electricity engineering for non-technical.
Mm-hmm.
And that was interesting. But I tell you, once again, the pieces of the puzzle. There was now a bit of the physics talk. I had encountered serious exposure to physics when I was in the sciences era. There was now, a bit of the chemistry and so forth. So that was exciting because with that course, doing it, we would do it actually and visit electricity power plants and visit substations that were regulated by the different regulators. For that specific course, I had to go to Zambia, Kafue Gorge, and you get to actually visit the power plants. I had the opportunity of visiting substations that are regulated by their regulator and also understand how their regulator was regulating them. So already for me, that was like, wow. And as far as energy is concerned, and starting to study their laws, studying our own laws, I tell you, there was a lot of collaboration. And beyond just the issue of the energy regulator, beyond, the energy per se, there was the issue of the public sector, because that was also my first time working for the public sector. So
Yeah.
even from issues of performance management, this was now a different ballgame altogether. I tell you, I found myself requesting for meetings with the main government offices that were running performance management, requesting for meetings with engineers, and getting to understand our petroleum and electricity laws and energy regulation laws. So that was exciting. I found that meeting the different people was absolutely amazing. And like I said before, you cannot critique what you don't understand. So for me, that was the main thrust on entrance into the regulator. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing, because what I'm hearing is I made some notes here, is that number one, you're up for the challenge. Number two, you're self-aware. And number three, you're self-motivated. And you leaned into this by requesting meetings and all of that, all in the space and time we lived in where there was no AI. So you couldn't go to a ChatGPT and say, tell me about all the regulations that I need to know in this, right? So it's a lot of effort, to do that. And I find that those traits that you embody are common with the traits of the other guests that I have on the podcast. So I'm beginning to see, as I'm getting into this podcasting more and more and more, with all of the amazing, inspiring women in audit, I do see these patterns emerging in our leaders, in our female leaders in the audit industry. And I think that's brilliant. I did want to ask you, you've mentioned a couple of times where someone higher in the hierarchy has said to you, you don't seem happy, or what, asking you really smart questions like, what are you going to do about that? I need more knowledge. So, okay, so what are you going to do about that? How did those people early in your career actually help you?
I think first and foremost, these people were true leaders, I must say, because they helped me find myself. So, for example, when the partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers said, "Young lady, you're not happy," that was essentially another way of saying, what do you really want to do? Yeah? What do you really want to do? And that tasking some individuals to look into it and to make sure I was happy, that was helping me to make a choice, helping me to get exposure to the different worlds, to say, okay, look, this is what you wanted to do. This is what maybe you've always wanted to do. Here's a bit of what we're also offering you. So the issue of choices, being decisive, they helped me to be decisive, to make choices. They helped me to get exposure. And they also helped me to realize just that nothing goes for nothing. Even the external audit experience, I tell you, has contributed a lot to who I am today. So, and they were also helping me to get out of my shell. Like I said, at 19, there's this, you're kind of like fearful and apprehensive. But it was helping me to get out of my shell, to actually state things as they are. I came for the interview. This is not what I was interviewed for, and so forth. So that was me getting out of my shell, where you are probably expected to be hesitant as a 19-year-old. You are then speaking out and having to say, no, yes, I did come for this, but it turned out like this, and so forth. So that was like the first instance. Then even with my, I mentioned the incident with the other audit committee chairperson. I was worried, it's the public sector. Am I going to cope? What is it like? Because there's a certain perception that you have of the public sector. But once again, I was encountering good leaders who would ask me, probe me, helping me to discover myself, how far I can stretch my potential. I never thought I'd end up attending electricity engineering for non-technical. But look, when you're surrounded with leaders who will give you an opportunity to unleash. So they were helping me to be creative. How are you going to get to understand this industry? And you're popping at, I need an interview with so and so. I need to go for training. I need to do A, B, C, D, E. And they allow you to do that. So they were also they helped me unleash my potential, discover myself. And it makes me speak differently about issues of taking the initiative, maybe because I was in those environments where you're allowed, to bring an idea to the table and run with it. Yeah.
And I'm making an assumption at this point, but I'm guessing that has informed your leadership philosophy, perhaps even influenced you in like your professional approach. Can you speak to that at all?
Yes. Definitely, that has gone a long way into making me the leader that I am today. I tell you, I'm big on giving my colleagues an opportunity to speak. And I believe that there's always something to learn from someone, irregardless of their level. Either they will teach you something that you didn't know, or you will discover something about yourself through dealing with them. So I'm pretty much in the forefront of also giving others an opportunity, opening doors for other people. And I'm always on this drive of telling my colleagues that, you know what, you can do so much better. So that whole trajectory of always improving, and my main message is always, don't keep holding on to a past success or past victory. I tell you that the easiest thing to get is failure after success. So don't keep holding on to a past success. Yes, you've been successful. Ask yourself, how can you be better at whatever it is? And that all came from the leaders who were leading me previously.
And has that led you to like come up with a kind of personal mantra or philosophy?
I particularly had one audit committee chairperson who would always say to me, I like how you just bring your things to the table. You're not worried about what people are going to say. And you look like you've got this attitude of, look, the least that can happen is they'll say no. So I then figured, look, it all begins with you. It begins with me. I will make the decision to look into something. I will make the decision to know something better. It's the individual who makes the decision to become better, and collectively we become a better team. It's the individual who said, young lady, you're not happy. So it's not a group of people who noticed that there's a little girl here and she's not happy. And even putting the foot forward to say, I want to learn about the energy sector. I could have just gotten in there and said, okay, what's going on here? What are the processes? I'm diving into the audits. But it all begins with an individual lifting up their hand to say, I'm here, I'm ready to do this, and I think this is how we should do it. So for me, it begins with you.
I think that is a great mantra or motto, and I feel like that has it really resonates in terms of your story of going to seek information instead of sitting there and saying, you need to give me information about this and you information about that. You're actively building your knowledge base, continuous learning, all those kinds of things, and taking ownership. And I think that's so important just for our whole audit community. We're in the process of change. I mean, we're always in the process of change, but I feel like the change and the innovation has sped up since COVID began. And I think it's a good thing for the industry, but it takes one person to say, we need to move forward, or we need to stop doing this because we're spinning our wheels, or it's not getting us where we need to be. It's not getting us the audit results. So when we talk about, when I just think about the conversations that I have with people about their reporting template or their quality assurance process or their testing procedures, or they're not getting all their planning done before they start their field work. I mean, these are things that can absolutely be changed. It takes one person to stand up and say, you know what? We need to just stop the insanity, and let's stop doing what's not bringing value and start doing what we think might, and then we just fast. But it takes one person.
And you know what, Tracy? Even in the corporate world, failures that we've had in different organizations, I tell you, it takes an individual to say, I vote no, when everyone else is saying, I vote yes. When, just one individual saying, but look, how can we vote yes, for something that is going to harm people, for something that is not going to be of good impact to humanity? So yeah, for me, it begins with you, that individual who dares to say, look, I think for myself, and this is what I think.
And it comes back to courage, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love how the new standards, challenges to professional courage. because definitely that should be the core for the era we are living in.
Yeah, it was time. It was time to add that. Courage and curiosity, I think, are just so important. Courage, curiosity, communication, so important thing that we do. All right, when we talked previously to sitting down for the recording, you told me a lot of stories of your career. And I'm wondering, is there a particular challenge that you can share with us from earlier in your career that shapes your work philosophy today?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, like you said, there was quite a lot of sharing there, but I think I'll zero in on one. So I worked for a financial institution, a bank, and very, very challenging environment, very interesting, very exciting, I must say. That was a bit soon after PricewaterhouseCoopers. And the major challenge there was, I think, first and foremost, realizing that you might not be given the leeway to exercise the professionalism that you've been accumulating for so many years. And that requires, Tracy, your trainings on communication and so forth. And so with the audits, financial sector is heavily regulated. We had some disagreements over audit reports, audit issues, and it got quite heated up to the extent of a suspension, a dismissal, and really having to stand your guns in terms of your values, your integrity, and spelling out who Rumbi is and what I really stand for. And, at the firm, life is generally easy when you're with PricewaterhouseCoopers. You're basically going to do the audits, pass it on to the manager. If you're the manager, pass it on to the partner. They'll handle all the difficult issues. But once you're out in the corporate world and you're the chief internal auditor, the chief audit executive, everything is on you. And
that's what I wanted to just ask. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask, what position were you in when you had these issues about findings and reporting and results and were dismissed?
Okay. So the title was chief internal auditor, but essentially the equivalent of a chief audit executive when we look at our standards.
Yeah.
So that having to bring to the table the real issues and the correct situation on the ground. More often than not, we have, people in the profession who would shy away from that. But so yes, it was really heated up. It was hot, but an excellent learning and growth opportunity. To be honest, I don't think I would be who I am today if I had not gone through that experience. Because you'd find it was tough at the time. There were hearings, court issues, which I'm happy I did go through. And I'm sure it was probably one of the first in the country. Went through it, but with a good outcome at the end. Interesting enough, with a good outcome at the end. And definitely the pain then turned into purpose.
That's amazing.
Like, serious purpose, because I tell you, anyone else, I didn't discover there were so many people, after that, I discovered there were so many people going through hardships in internal auditing. And this was something I never knew. So many people having challenges in terms of, I don't know how to call it, persecuted in their jobs, some of them not getting the benefits that are due to them because of the audit reports that they've written, a lot of pressure. And I discovered that more of them were women,
Interesting.
Exactly. And you'd find that people were just looking for an anchor. Because now I was thinking, okay, before this happened to me, how come no one ever walked up to me and told me that they were having challenges? Absolutely no one. But after I'd gone through this, I tell you, the number of people who knock at my door, the number of people who come through and they feel free to talk about their challenges. We sit down and I tell you, it's interesting because people will say, thank you so much. And I'm thinking, for what? I can't even really see what I've done. But it can be cold out there when you're going through all this, especially if everyone else around you behaves like nothing like that is happening with them. Like, if everyone else is giving that picture that everything is going well, we're in agreement with our audit committees, exactly the mask. Everything is going on well with our executive management and the board. So you can feel very lonely. So over the years, I've discovered that the fact that I'll just listen to someone and they're confident that they're talking to me in confidence, just the fact that they've got an ear to listen to them is a big deal.
A lot of people have come to you because of your experience. So was your experience public? Was your experience in the news or something in your country?
Oh, yes, it was. It was. So, yes. And by then, I had also started training. I was in the Continuous Professional Education Committee, for the Institute of Internal Auditors Zimbabwe. So by then I was someone that people knew in the profession. Yeah. So, and then the whole story being in the public domain, people knew about it. They knew what had happened. And, as usual, people have a lot to say. There was so much for people to say. But the interesting part about it, the outcome later was in my favor. It was good. And eventually it's something that is strengthening other people. And also the part I like the most, it's a story that is helping other people to stand for integrity, to stand for the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important for audit professionals to hear that. And sometimes it's a painful process when you stand for your integrity and actually some negative things happen. But in the end, it's worked out, and seems like a lot of people come to you because you're able to listen and empathize with the situations that they're going through. So I'm wondering, is there a particular guidance that you give throughout this kind of official or unofficial mentoring?
So yes, first and foremost, my message to someone is you're not alone. Every other internal auditor out there has their issues. They might not be sharing them. They might not be public, but you're not alone. You're not alone. You're certainly not alone. And you've got other professionals as well. Look, depending on what the case is, I'll even say to someone, make sure you've got a lawyer. Because usually when such a difficult circumstance approaches you, you're stunned, like you're dumbfounded. Like, these are people who employed me, and I was expecting that, we could at least agree to disagree, something like that. Exactly. So just that, telling someone you're not alone, beyond the internal audit fraternity, other professionals can also help you, can also advise you appropriately. So usually that's my number one issue, to say, look, you're not alone. Secondly, protect your integrity. So now, beyond just waiting for people to come to me with their issues, I also encourage internal auditors to do their jobs well. Because for me, with my particular case, when an assessment was then done to say, to assess whether I was doing my work according to the standards, that assessment had very good results. So before we even get to you being in trouble, you don't protect your integrity at the point of being in trouble. It's your day-to-day job. So beyond waiting for people to come to me with their issues, my other message to internal auditors is do what you do well. Do what you do well. Make sure you're certified internal auditor. Make sure you've got the qualifications. Make sure you've got the expertise. Do what you do well. Then in the face of things, yes, maintain your integrity. Maintain your integrity, but definitely maintaining your integrity starts from before you're facing something. Never regret doing the right thing. So it's one of those things, the one piece of the puzzle that will always fit. It might take long for you to see where it's fitting, but It will always fit. And then I also say to people, relax, pause, take time to reflect and regroup. Don't panic. Because usually people will panic. And if they're not careful, they end up, for example, breaching confidentiality because you want to get back at the organization. No. We can't afford to have you on the wrong side of the law. Yes, you're being attacked. You're under pressure. And maybe you think you should just unleash at, at colleagues in the organization who are getting to you or whatever it is. But look, keep cool, be calm, pause, take time to regroup, get yourself together, think through the process logically. What's going on here? What do you need to resolve it? Who do you need to collaborate with? What do you need to communicate? What sort of communication will not be a breach of confidentiality? Some industries are regulated, and depending on what industry you're working for, maybe your reports go to a regulator. You now want to seek legal advice. Will it be a breach of confidentiality if we report this as a governance breach to the regulator? All sorts of issues. But you can't think about all this, Tracy, if you're panicking.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So I think that's some great advice. So, find someone to speak to who can understand what you've been through. Get a lawyer if you need one. Make sure you your integrity. Don't breach confidentiality. All that is really good advice. But, I think I hope that there aren't a lot of auditors out there facing these types of things, but I suspect there are more than we realize because it's not talked about so much openly.
Yeah, I think because some of the stories maybe then don't quite go public. So someone will be suffering by themselves, which I realized in the end that self-suffering, you're by yourself, you're not talking about it, ends up making people probably shun the profession. Then you wonder, how come someone is no longer in audits? They're feeling the pressure and they felt like there's no outlet. Because what I realized is, number one, dealing with the issue as you see it approach. That's when you're needing, wise counsel around you. And then let's say it actually does happen, it gets so bad, dealing with it at that stage. And then let's say it gets public and all sorts of, it really gets crazy, dealing with your life after that.
Yeah.
We then need to support each other as professionals.
Yeah.
And so those phases are different phases that definitely call for a different type of support, because after someone has been through that rough patch, whatever it is, whether it gets public or not, we then need to help that person to reclaim themselves. Try to help them to turn their pain into purpose, to reconnect with the profession, try to get them to build a new chapter, and practical career recovery, which is, I guess, very important as well, whether it went public or not. But just that support, I've realized, is very important, so that even the internal auditors themselves know that, look, there's someone to talk to about this. And they don't shun away from talking about it, whether they're going to approach a local institute. And then that helps people to move forward and not to just maybe abandon the career and then just, slump into uselessness because of something that happened once in their career path. Yeah.
Well, I think that's great advice. And I think you're a very good role model for those who might be struggling. So I don't know, check your DM inbox on LinkedIn. You may get some people reaching out to you. Let's see. All right. I'd like to switch tracks a little bit. And, I know you're very, focused on emerging risks and looking at future trends. Can you tell us a little bit about how you incorporate that into your work?
I've had to work it out into a framework. And I like having things around me that excite me. So my framework there is just an acronym, and I call it Sparkle. And it's so interesting because I just shared Sparkle also at the Slovenia IIA conference. And it starts off like Sparkle, that's your SPARRKLE. So with the S, for me, when we're looking forward and, merging the future issues with the current, we're saying you need to see the vision of success. And you can't start off by seeing the vision of success just for internal audits. Look, internal audit is in an organization. So you're looking at what is the vision of organizational success for the organization you're working for. Already by the time you do that, you're saying, okay, where are the similar organizations like our organization? I work for the regulator. What's happening with the first world regulators? What's trending? What are the new energy issues that are trending? What's being adopted elsewhere? What has already been adopted? What are the laws that have been passed elsewhere? And, just saying, okay, given where we are, maybe as an economy, as a country, what would be the success of this country pertaining to energy? And what role would the energy regulator play? And what role would internal audits within the energy regulator play? So just that, first and foremost, seeing the vision of success. What are we saying? Because for you to see the vision of success, Tracy, you need to at least have defined what success is.
Yes.
Exactly. Because it's so easy to misfire. So when I look at it from just internal audits, yes, the strategic advisor, strategic, trusted advisor. And to be strategic, you need to be envisioning the future success of your organization. So for me, I'd always look at it that way. Guys, with my team members, what is it that we call a successful internal audit team within the energy regulator? Then we're saying, okay, the P, we want to power the engines of progress. Because we've defined what the success is, but what the people are going to get us to that success? First and foremost is the individual. I'm back to my whole philosophy of it begins with you. The individual members of an organization determine how successful it's going to become. The individual and the team are basically our engines, that will fire, that will make us progress and get us to that envisioned success. So I'll talk to my team members about, look, what is it that you think you can do that you've never done before? What is it that you need? I'm back to the leaders who mentored me in the past. What is it that you need to make your role a success? What is it that you need to make the energy regulator a success? What do you need to do as an individual? Because gone are the days, Tracy, when you just do the blame game. Sit in audit and sulk. They're not giving me a seat at the table. They're not giving me a good salary. No. We don't have time for that. We are not here to sulk. We are here to make things move and own a piece of the pie, a piece of the success pie. And have the leaders in organizations say the organization is so successful today because of the internal audit department, because of the internal auditors, but the department is made up of individuals. So yes, the individual, technical expertise. A team has technical expertise because of individuals who have technical expertise. So the engines of success is the individual and the team. What are other teams doing? So I love presentations on AI, what's trending in general. So for me, that then drives me to go and study new things. We've studied internal auditing. What don't we know about internal auditing? Yes, standards have changed, but I tell you the fundamentals are still the same. So we want to take at the major things that are changing and say, are we ready for the change that lies ahead? That's key. The A, we want to anticipate, already I've touched on it, anticipating the changes that are coming. So S, see the vision of success. P, we want to power the engines that drive the success. And then A, we want to anticipate the change in the shifting landscape, because that's how you prepare for the future. You say what's going to change in the future and how is it going to impact me as an individual? How is it going to impact my organization? And how is it going to impact internal auditing? And then the R on Sparkle is recognize resistance. Do you know we are so good at saying management is resisting what internal audits is recommending, but we can also be resisting change as internal auditors. So recognizing resistance within you as an individual is also very important, because you can be told, look, the AI auditing tools are coming, and inside you're not ready. You're like, no. I've always done it this way, So you're not ready to embrace. But as internal auditors, we're supposed to be in the forefront. For as long as we are not ready to embrace, there's no way we are going to convince others to embrace. So recognizing resistance within ourselves as individuals, within our departments, team members. You can tell, this particular team member is not too happy about A, B, C, D. They don't want to change. Recognizing, resistance that might actually happen within the organization to a particular organizational change is very important, because we, as the engines of success, once we recognize the resistance, we can give advice on how our organizations should manage that resistance. And then knowing the faith of resilience. So once you've recognized resistance, do you know what resilience would look like to counter that resistance? And what are you going to do it to foster resilience? What are you going to do to foster resilience? That's also very important, because then automatically, Tracy, your issues of communication then kick in.
Yep.
How are we going to assist with change management? So the L on my sparkle then becomes leverage change management. You then want to work it out. What sort of change management tools are we going to use here? Maybe the organization doesn't seem to be embracing technology. So we are going to go and learn technology and start adopting it. We're going to lead by example. Already, that's a change management methodology, leading by example. Once people see how it's benefiting us, they'll also want to come and have a piece of the pie. And the E, you want to be able to energize the journey forward. You want people to enjoy it, So you've looked forward. You've seen the changes that lie ahead. You've even anticipated the level of resistance. So because you've anticipated it, you've already put in your controls to mitigate the resistance. And you've put in the controls to make sure people enjoy the change in the process. So for me, the looking forward means going ahead. What are the global transformation issues? How do they impact your space? Because you also have to do it in context. How do they impact your space? Where is your economy? Where is your organization? How are you going to prepare your organization for that change? And I tell you, it's been an interesting journey for me. It has seen me crafting standard board agenda items like our governance trends updates, where I will just talk to the board about anything that is trendy in the energy sector, what the first world countries are doing, anything that's coming our way, share the information, just an open sharing. I'm not recommending anything, but at least to get them seeing also. That way we are all seeing the same vision of success. And
do you
by the time...
Do you collaborate
Yes.
with other regulators outside first world countries?
Yes, definitely. So, for example, I've been taking part with what ICER, it's International Confederation of Energy Regulators, which harbors women in energy. So you get paired with, so for example, director electricity in Ofgem. It can be another female. They're in a different country. They're in Europe, so you exchange. So they've got mentorship programs, coaching programs. So that interaction is certainly helpful, that collaboration, because then even when you're then trying to do something that others have already done, you can give someone a call. Look, we're trying to do this. My organization is trying to do this. How best can I advise them as the internal auditor? So that makes us as internal audit then bring value to the table. Yeah, certainly. So for me, it's been also breaking those boundaries of just being in audit professional bodies. Also joining the industry specific associations to learn more about the industry. Yeah.
And so did we cover all of Sparkle? Did we cover the E in Sparkle?
Yes. E was our energizing the journey forward, because then you need to make the journey forward exciting. That's the only way people will buy in, to that vision of the play. To say, look, we're going to do A, B, C, D, E to adjust to this, to prepare for it as it comes our way.
Okay. I'm going to make sure that we have the Sparkle acronym available to everyone, but I'll just going to recap for our audience. So in Sparkle, the S is see the vision of success.
Yeah.
The P is power engines of progress. The A is anticipate shifting landscape. The R is recognize resistance.
Mm-hmm.
K is know the face of resilience. L is leverage change management, and E is energize the journey forward. So I think that's brilliant. And I think that's something that can really inspire our audience as they go on in their journeys.
Because what I've realized, Tracy, just to add on to that, half the time we are laid back, the people in operations are the ones taking the lead. Then we are having to react. Oh my God, what audit procedures am I going to put for this? But you want to be even in the forefront to say to them, why don't you adopt this leading technology? What are we waiting for? We've got people who can do this. You want to be the one to actually bring things to them. So that way you're preparing the entire organization, and that also keeps you on your toes, because you can't be recommending technologies and things that you won't then audit. So yeah, it keeps the department exciting, actually.
I imagine it does, and I just think it's very forward thinking, instead of, because, the old way is, reactionary, did we comply? And now we've flipped it, and we're looking at, what are the emerging risks? How do we add value, not just today, but in the future? And that means potentially, as you say, like proposing things that the business should do or look at anyway. So I'm interested in your work in the women in audit space, because you also have a passion for amplifying women's voices in internal audit. I know that you spoke at an ISACA conference during International Women's Month. Could you tell us just a little bit about the main messages from that?
Okay. So with the ISACA conference, they were featuring the concept of women in tech. So looking at both, women who've been who've been participating in IT audits, women who are technical IT gurus, and that space of things. You'd find that with that comes a lot of issues, exclusion, inclusion, whatever we might want to name it. And I had a joke about it. I said, guys, I'm going to beg to differ. The fact that you're talking inclusivity means someone has excluded you. But let me ask you a question. Who outrightly came into your face and said, Tracy, we will not allow you to be part of this? Sometimes, exactly. No one, Tracy, comes to you outright and says, Tracy, I don't want you here. Get out of this space. There's no room for here. No one, Tracy. Sometimes it's perceptions, us telling ourselves we've been excluded. But if we were really to pinpoint the point at which you were excluded, lo and behold, we might fail to find it. So for me, the main message there was just to say to women, look, create your case for inclusion. If you're going to be a technical expert, Tracy, then be the best technical expert there is in that field. So good at it that people just want you in their space. They want you on their team. Sometimes you might have to be a bit aggressive. So we go back to the issue of know what you want. What is it that you want? What is it? Because if you want something and you want to be involved in it, you should push to be included and make sure you've got the requisites, you've got whatever is required to be called to that particular party. So don't keep wearing the I'm a woman jacket. I've been excluded. Have you really been excluded? And have you created your case for inclusion? The appropriate technical expertise, the experience. And with that, I say to the women, woman, bold up. Be confident. Own your expertise, because people will include you. They will invite you as a woman to whatever they're doing because you own your expertise. Leverage your opportunities. More often than not, as women, we shy away from challenges. You feel like, oh no, this can just be too much for me. I don't think I would want to be in this hot pot, But look, if you're interested in a particular space, the tech space, for instance, with that ISACA presentation, go for it. Own your expertise, grab the opportunities, seek the opportunities. Sometimes opportunities aren't just going to come your way. You have to lift up your hand and lift it up high and say, I'm here. I really want to do this. Can you please give me an opportunity? And you'll be surprised what comes your way. And then the D on woman bold up, the D, develop your leadership. So sometimes as women, we are not proactive in seeking leadership roles. We actually shy away from them. Understandably so, because if you don't get a mentor who can talk to you about how maybe to work things out, balance your life, you might not then really want to get involved in leadership role. So we need to develop our leadership skills so that once we are then included, we can lead in whatever space it is. And then with the U on the up, bold up, upskill. You cannot celebrate, past victories, past qualifications, past knowledge gained. You need to keep gaining it. I think for me, that was one of the reasons why I went ahead to study the whole artificial intelligence lead implementer, the ISO 42001. It was in a bid to say, okay, this monster called IA, people keep talking about it. What is going to be its impact on what I do? But before I even talk about its impact on what I do as an internal auditor, definitely it's coming. And my organization will have to be ready for it. I think it's better if I take that route of leading the implementation, taking studies that will equip me to lead the implementation. I might not then be the one to really lead it in the organization, but because I've done this course, I can give solid advice in terms of how it should be laid out. So we need to upskill through continuous learning. And last but not least on the bold up was the P. We need to position ourselves strategically. So even if you're going to upskill, what are you upskilling? What are you studying? Is it relevant? Is it strategic? Is it something that will change things in your life and, in the life of the organization you're working for? So you also need, when I talk of positioning strategically, I'm saying, who are the people around you? I tell you, I have a lot of male allies, men in tech. I will mention my team members currently, the IT auditor, one of my team members. He's absolutely great at issues of tech. And I tell you, the things that I have come to know and learn have been through one of my team members. So already positioning myself strategically is not about how I'm senior to him in terms of roles, but I can still learn a lot from him because he's the technical expert. So we need to position ourselves strategically, be in a position to have people around us who know more than us and who are really ready to teach us. Some people can know more than us, but not have our best interest at heart. Network, and get that advice. So for me, with women and their voice, let's stop, whining and groaning about how we've been excluded. Let's create a case for inclusion. Yeah.
I mean, so much of what you said resonates. I want to just talk for a minute when you talked about your team and the IT professional that's there and how much you've learned from that person. There is a book out there in case anyone's interested. It's called Who, Not How. Because sometimes I, for one, struggle. I'm like, how am I going to get that done? How am I going to fit that, have that knowledge? How could I possibly get the right who? Right. So you pull people into the team that are capable of doing that so that you don't have to. So Who, Not How, it's by Dan Sullivan, widely available. So that's a great book. I have that book. Still learning, have to say, to focus on the who and not the how, because I'm an analyst at heart. So I tend to think about the how, and that how can get us stuck. So that's the first thing that I wanted to mention. And then the other thing, when you're talking about bold up, I love this acronym. We'll make sure that this is available as well, somehow through the various posts that we have, et cetera, or in the show notes somehow. One of the things I want to say, and I think this applies everywhere in life, is if you're going to put a story in your head, like I don't belong here, or they don't want me here, they don't want me at this table, why not flip that to, instead of putting a negative story in their heads for them, put a positive story in their heads. Like they want me in this meeting because this is what I bring, because these are my qualifications, because I deliver quality every time, because I'm excellent at what I do and I can communicate what they need to do. Put that positive story. They think I'm awesome. They think I'm amazing, and they want me in the room, right? So choose that kind of mindset. And then the other thing I thought was, like if you do have that mindset of, oh, they don't want me here, I'm thinking, number one, that's a limiting belief, and you can just get rid of that very easily. But then the other thing I want everyone to do is just crash the party. If they're having a party and you want to go to the party, just crash the party and say, oh,
Precisely.
lost my invitation, but thank goodness here I am, and ask for forgiveness later. As long as you're not hurting anyone, just crash the party.
Yeah. Be a go-getter.
Yeah. And I think the people that listen to this podcast are go-getters themselves, or they want to be a go-getter. And they're kind of in that transitioning mode of, I recognize I'm here and I want to be over here, and I need to have curiosity and courage and be a go-getter and be self-motivated, just like you and so many of the other amazing guests that we've had on the podcast, to go and just adopt that mindset. And I know there's the whole thing of, can you rewire your brain and all those things. I do believe we can rewire our brains, and we can learn to put ourselves in those situations and get over the discomfort and the fear. It's not fun maybe to go through that process, but you'll come out on the other side.
Exactly.
So much healthier and wiser and more
happier.
And happier. That's it.
Yeah.
You're sharing all your valuable knowledge and expertise. So I firmly believe that that's something that we should do. And for those of you who don't like the idea of crashing a party, sorry, not sorry. Yeah, it's like sometimes to live our best selves, we need to throw ourselves into situations or unexpected situations, perhaps. So on that note, let's say there are listeners out there, no matter their gender, thinking about becoming a chief audit executive. So they have the aspiration. Is there like a piece of advice you can give them to kind of encourage them on their way?
Yes. So those who are aspiring to be chief audit executives, what I would say is definitely it's not just going to happen. First and foremost, you need to make a conscious decision that that's what you want and put in deliberate efforts. Deliberate efforts to upskill, to collaborate, to also develop soft skills. I always say to people, look, there's so much more. Our work as internal auditors, there's so much more to it beyond the technical expertise. There's the soft skills. You can be a technical expert in whatever field, but for as long as you then don't have the soft skill, I actually call it beyond technological prowess. Especially when we're talking about one of the other presentations I had at another ISACA conference, where I titled it Beyond Technological Prowess. You've got the CISA, the flagship qualifications. But are you a good communicator? How is your emotional intelligence? How is your vision of success? Because you might just be misfiring, putting all the energy where it doesn't matter. So for those who are aspiring, take a look at yourself, know your weaknesses. It's okay not to know certain things. Once you know you've got that weakness, act on it. Be deliberate about it. How are you going to get the knowledge? Tracy, like you rightfully said with that book, who and not what. But you can only acknowledge that the who if you realize you've got a weakness. You don't know something or you need better knowledge. So a conscious, deliberate effort. Itemize things. What do I need to do and when do I need to do it by? A lot of internal auditors go to training courses. I've trained at a lot of CPD sessions. And I tell you, the key thing there is walking out of each training session with your implementation strategy. that has taken me to where I am, to be honest. I don't attend a presentation or a session for nothing. I have to get out of it with 1 or 2, 3 points where I'm saying, wow, the way this was done is great. I'm going to go and learn about it and do it. So be big on implementation. It's funny, Tracy. To become a chief audit executive, you just need to be big on what you're telling people as an internal auditor. Half the time we are recommending that, the auditees should do this, they should do that. We need to be implementers. Yeah. Assess yourself. What are your weaknesses? What can you do to work on those weaknesses and improve them? Implement anything you've learned, have some implementation points and do it, because getting to the top, it's all about doing stuff. It will not just happen, and you have to be deliberate about it. And I think key to that is being your own person. You are allowed to showcase how you think, and you're allowed to think differently.
So being authentic and true to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think, doing a gap analysis on like, where am I and where do I want to be? So if I know I want to be a chief audit executive, now you can even go into, an LLM of your choice and say, what are the skills needed to be a chief audit executive in this country, in this environment, in this organization, in this industry, whatever it is. And then do a gap analysis for yourself. And I also recommend in some of my communication workshops, you do a personal SWOT analysis. What are my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And some of those are internal, not external. It's our own mindset holding us back, or maybe we're a procrastinator, or maybe, I don't know, whatever it is. Sometimes we just hold ourselves back. We have a limiting belief, for example. And so you want to get rid of those if you can. So, all right. I want to jump to something that we as women have been talking about for decades, and that's work-life integration, I'll say. I don't know that we ever achieve balance. So I was having a conversation with someone recently, and they told me that they thought that women might shy away from internal audit because it's a demanding profession, and they might have concerns about work-life balance. Now, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
So yeah, that's an interesting one, Tracy, because for me, a wife of one husband, a mother of 3, definitely that means there's so much to be balanced. But I think I will share my experiences. I think first and foremost, I've had to engage into what seasonal living, to say to myself, okay, what season am I in? Is this mom season? Is this chief audit executive season? I think it's now wife season. So really defining to say, okay, so I give myself permission to lean on what matters now. Yeah. So I'll know, for example, with my schedule at work, there are these typical months when it's really busy and it's a really chief audit executive season. But how am I going to then compensate all that for mom season, wife season, and everything else? So yeah, knowing what season you're in and making sure you do what should be done. So if it's time for me to work as a chief audit executive, I'll make sure I'm working and meeting my deadlines so that the work will not disturb mom time, mom season. So that calls for a lot of organization. And secondly, for me, it's been sacred scheduling.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, I will align my calendar with my core values.
Brilliant.
Because unless I do that, so for example, we do a bird watching with the family. This can be scheduled, let's say, for example, first Sunday of every month. So automatically, I make sure, like those weekends with the first Sunday of every month, I have a lot of slack and they're free and I've completed all the outstanding work, say by Thursday, so that even when I go for the bird walk with the children, the full Sunday, the whole picnic, outdoor life, I don't have this burden weighing in on my mind, because it's one thing to be present, but not really present.
Yeah.
So yeah. And at work, I also make sure as part of sacred scheduling, empowering my audit team members. I think as women, our major issue is how we cannot delegate, despite us having the hierarchical structures. And also sometimes as women, we believe we do whatever it is in the best way possible. So you hold on to things. So as part of my sacred scheduling, it has come with empowering my team members, letting them grow and not micromanaging them. So I'll throw them in the deep end, like you're the one going to do the presentation at the audit committee this time. And I'll mention to the audit committee that, look, this is part of succession planning. This is part of grooming, other people into these roles. So that way, when I'm in mom season, I'm not like thinking, oh my goodness, so what's happening at work?
Yeah.
I'm away from work, and indeed I'm away, like truly mind, body, and soul. Mom season type of a thing. And then at home as well, as much as it applies to work, the whole empowering and mentoring and, developing people to manage, I also do the same at home. So I've had to work on a learning system for my children where they're also very much empowered and independent as well. More like my first son calls it the do-it-yourself type of a thing. So there isn't much of mom is not here to make the muffins. They can all make the muffins. So it's so nice to get home and they're done and prepared. And also as part of my sacred scheduling, getting help. It's not a weakness, ladies, to cry for help. It's perfectly okay to cry for help. So a support network of my mom, sisters, in-laws, and help, someone to come and maybe sit through with my daughter if I'm thinking she has to go somewhere and I can't be there. Support. And on that sacred scheduling as well, alternating with my husband. So whatever is happening with the children, we've made it a point one of us has to be there. So we then schedule it, like I said, scheduling my things around my core values. Delegating, yes, like a leader, not just at work, but also at home. And saying no. Saying no is huge, Tracy.
Boundaries.
I,
And so
you
many of
can't
us
take
don't. We just
Oh,
keep adding to our plates because we're used to taking that on, and then there's overwhelm, right? So I think I love the sacred scheduling, number one, and tying that to your core values. So I'm taking that with me from this discussion. But I also think about the who, not how, right? So it comes back to, like, if you need someone to be with your daughter, then you know the who that is
exactly.
be there with her.
Now that trusted network,
Yeah.
so with me, for example, if it's going to be my mom, like I'm at peace with that. Like, okay, no, so everything is okay. And then just protecting me time. That's
Yeah.
another issue, because I also need to revitalize big issues on my health. Unless I'm healthy, I can't give anything to the work I do. I can't then be my best. And that's tied to saying no, because the moment you say yes to everything, you can then be the best at whatever your line is, like your area is. And then also the other thing that has been helpful, including my family into what I do. So including my children. Including my children into things, and also making sure that they're not in the busy space. So if I'm going to be busy, I'm busy at work, like seriously busy, and also negotiating. I've been in negotiations with my CEO, whom I report to administratively, to say, look, I really need to do A, B, C, D with my children at such and such a time. So can I start work earlier? So if I start work earlier, that means I also leave work early, and people will be like, so how do you juggle this? But it then works. And with the children, I'm there when they need me. So that then really, really helps. And also, just being clear about my purpose. You mentioned earlier on doing a SWOT analysis. I actually encourage women to have a personal strategy, because with all these things to manage, Tracy, they are not just going to be a success by chance. I'm not going to be a successful mother by chance. So I really have to sit down and say, okay, what is my personal strategy? How am I going to be handling the stakeholders, the children, the husband, my own siblings, my parents, and all that? So being deliberate about it is also very important, and making sure that we then place it all, because you also have the colleagues whom you want to meet periodically, the friends whom you want to see here and there. So also just saying, okay, the purpose of all this, and you then coin that into your strategy, and you can have it laid out. That has really helped me. Who am I supposed to see? How often? I need to catch up with this person. I need to check on so and so. So all that, being deliberate about it, then feeds into into a sacred schedule. It then has the people, times allocated to them. I know it sounds also, I don't know, audity, but it has had to be like that so that I can balance off everything and protect the values. Yeah.
Protect what's important. And I always say family first. Too.
Mm.
So there's some real key learning points there. I've made a ton of notes. Having a personal strategy, being deliberate, that sacred schedule is priceless, and aligning it with your core values. I think that's great advice for our audience. And, as we come to the end of the podcast, it's time now for me to ask you, what does the future look like, and what does your legacy look like?
So the legacy, I'll start with the legacy. The legacy looks like, think for yourself. Don't just follow the crowd. This is something I definitely want to be able to leave out there, in as far as the internal auditing fraternity is concerned. Think for yourself. First and foremost, think for yourself. Secondly, you cannot critique what you don't understand. That's, when it comes to our profession, is so key. And looking ahead in the future, definitely I want to be able to have something more formal in terms of mentorship, in terms of being an anchor, in terms of being that person who encourages others to think for themselves, to say to someone, it's actually okay for you to be the odd one out in the boardroom, for as long as, you're the odd one out in the right thing. Because I've realized that people out there lack the psychological safety net that they require to stand for the right things. So I would love to be able to move it to the future, formalizing the whole concept of it begins with you. Think for yourself, and it's perfectly fine to be the odd one out. And moving into that space of mentorship, I've also realized that, look, when I started off my career, I was quite surprised that there was internal audit. All I knew of was external audit. That's what I expected to find at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So for me, moving forward is I would love to play a key role in terms of making sure the profession doesn't become extinct. So a lot of talks, even with university students, college students, making sure they're clear about governance issues, risk management issues, compliance issues, the fact that there's internal audit as a profession. And that stems from how I began. I had no clue that there was anything called internal audit. It was the first time I was hearing about it when I had been taken to the right side of the building. So definitely looking at the future, I would like to be involved seriously in such initiatives. And because I am of the view that internal audit does, it forms the fundamentals of goodness, as having the good corporates, the good countries, the good economies, the good governance. So if that can be given to young people from an early age, the whole catch them before they fly mantra, that would be great. Then we know we've got, grounded future internal auditors in the profession, and valuable, that there can be people who can add value and be invited to the party, not be whimpering over inclusion, exclusion. So yeah, in the future, that's what I'm really wanting to get up to.
I see that vision coming to life for you. I don't know if it's the build up movement or the it begins with you movement, but I can definitely see that tangible result that you'll create. So I'm looking forward to it. So Rumbi, thank you so much for joining me on the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. It's been a real treat. I have tons of notes on little points that I've learned from you and that I'm going to take with me. And a big thank you from me and from our audience. And I leave the last word to you.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. To the women who've been on this podcast, who are watching and tuned in, bold up. Don't cry over being female. Bold up. Female or male, you can still sparkle. You can still sparkle. You can still be the agent of change and spearhead the new era from wherever you're coming from. And like I always say, it begins with you. So please, let's all go out there and make sure we begin something. Thanks, Tracy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. We'd love for you to stay part of our growing community, so subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're enjoying our content on platforms like iTunes or Spotify, a quick 5-star rating from you would mean the world to us. It's a small action that supports our mission immensely. Don't forget to explore the show notes for various links and join our vibrant community on all our social media platforms. Your interaction and support play a crucial role in amplifying the voices of inspiring women in audit and spreading their inspiring stories even further. Thank you for being a part of our journey, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.